Yo, what's going on, snipers, and welcome back to our Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 franchise mode here in NHL 25. So in last episode, if you did not catch it, we had the 2010 NHL draft and the re-sign stage, and we pretty much kept most of the team the exact same in the re-sign stage. We did let go of some pieces that basically just that fill out our roster, like Pisani, Aaron Johnson, stuff like that. We also did trade away Dustin Penner at the draft, so we did get back a decent first round pick, which did net us a good prospect in the likes of Tyler Toffoli. So excited to see what he turns out to be like. We also drafted Alexander Burmistrov, so at least we're starting to get a little bit of a prospect pool together. We also drafted some generated prospects just because generated prospects are always kind of fun to develop in my opinion, just because you could kind of make like a storyline more with them. Like we could say that, for instance, like maybe this guy that we drafted, he was actually like a different prospect at the time, certain thing like that. We also drafted Grubauer, so we do have ourselves now a goaltending prospect in case Dubnyk doesn't pan out. So we are addressing some of our needs, which is good, but also there is more players on our roster still that we could potentially think about flipping away, which I'm not too sure still who I want to flip away, and I didn't really get any comments to suggest about trading away players as well. So we'll see if we end up making any moves before we start the season or not. Depends really, I guess, on what I could get for certain players, but we might keep most of this roster intact going into next season again. And I don't know if I'll start up the season sim in this episode for 2010-11. I might honestly just see what we have, and if we're too good in certain areas, maybe we want to lower our ability in some of those areas a bit. But Devin Dubnyk definitely will be our backup goaltender this season instead of Jeff Delorier, so that's going to be one thing that changes for sure. And then aside from that, I think most of this team should be pretty similar for the most part. Like, we are probably going to end up using, like, maybe Chorney as some depth. Jeff Petrie might get a chance to play in the lineup this season, which is exciting because he's another right-handed defenseman. So, kind of interested to see how this team does with some of the younger guys getting into the lineup. And then also, obviously, having guys like Cogliano, Gagne, and all those type of guys still continue to develop a bit more. So, should be exciting. So there is that. Now, before we get into free agency, let's get your guys' comments, see what you guys have to say about last episode, and then we'll see what we end up doing this offseason in terms of adjustments. Obviously, we're going to have to look into maybe some new scouts for our team as well and all that. So there's a lot of work to do this offseason, but we'll get to that after this comments. So the first one is from Max Herman, who says good moves made, and I think so too. I think that Penner deal was a pretty good one because we got, I think it was like 17th overall where we drafted Toffoli, if I remember right, and then we also got a second round pick for next year as well, so that could end up being something decent. But yeah, Tyler Toffoli should develop into being a pretty solid prospect, good sniper. Obviously right now he still has a lot of work to develop, but I think he could become useful for us. And if he doesn't, then it's not the end of the world. But I think having him maybe next to Burmistrov in the future could be a decent like top 9, top 6, something like that. Because Burmistrov also developed some X factors, which I didn't give him X factors, so I don't know how he developed them. But obviously he's a high overall of the draft because in real life he was like a really high up pick. So having him as a 75 medium top 9, he should end up developing into actually being something like as good as he was in real life, or maybe even better, because the fact that he's already a 75 at 18, like he's pretty much almost NHL ready at this point in time. Like if he was AHL eligible, I'd probably definitely be playing him in Springfield this season, but he isn't eligible, unfortunately. The next comment is from Saurataku, who says, not a terrible draft, but not a great one either. If Burmistrov has X factors, there's probably a good chance he outgrows that potential. So maybe him and Toffoli will end up being a good second line combo. And yeah, that's true. He could end up growing this potential. I definitely think he can, since he's got those X factors like you were saying. But also since he's a 75 at 18, there's definitely a good chance he could be like a higher end, high top 9 type of guy, like maybe an 83 plus. Maybe he gets up even to being a normal top 6 forward where he's like an 85, 86, but should be a nice little centerman to have in the second line spot, maybe behind, say, Sam Gagne down the road, because I wouldn't mind holding on to Gagne for quite a while at this point. So that's probably something we'll end up doing, is having Gagne, Burmistrov as the top 2 centers. Cogliano will probably end up using more as a winger just because his faceoffs haven't really developed that well. But yeah, likely that will be kind of how we run this team, I think, in terms of the lineup for the future. And the last three and final comments are from Jared the Rabbit, which is just basically him correcting EA's bad like names for their generated prospects, because he says EA Bradley Gagliardi, me Bernard Gerard, which he would have. So if this was an actual realistic name for a guy from Switzerland, it should be Bernard Gerard. Actually, was he French? I don't remember. I can't tell now. But I think he would have been from France. But maybe he was from. No, actually, I think he was from Switzerland. It's one of those two countries for sure. But then he also corrects Billy Vici into Bogdan Wolski, because I guess Billy Vici was like Polish. And then he also says broke Carter Van Allen, woke Claude Valcourt. So Van Allen, who went in the first round, he was definitely a Frenchman. For some reason, he had like an English name like Carter Van Allen, which is kind of weird. So yeah, thank you for that, Jared. And those were the comments we got in last episode. So with that said, I'm trying to still think if we need to make any crazy trades this offseason. That's like my first business order we need to look into. Because Heavy Bullen wasn't going to net us a ton, so we might as well just hold on to him for the year. As of right now, defensively, we should be okay with this defensive core. It's not the strongest defensive core in the world, because obviously we have 3 good defenders, and then these defenders are a little bit on the lower end, but that's okay. So I don't think we need any defensemen. Forward-wise, we have Hemsky. We have O'Sullivan, so that's 3, 4, 5, 6 with Reddix. Maybe 7 with Menard. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. I'm trying to think. We could get JF Jacques into our lineup, hypothetically, too. Or Linus Omark, even for that matter, because he might not even pan out. Yeah, I think we might not really need to sign anything in free agency, to be honest. We're also at 41 out of 50 contracts, so we could kind of just stay pat maybe with the roster and see how good it looks going into next season. So I don't think we're going to make any trades or signings, which some of you guys might like, hey, we should at least make a signing, but I don't think there's any use to make a signing because we don't really want to make ourselves too good right now. And also there's not really much in terms of good young free agents out there either, so I think we probably won't make any signings. We won't make any trades unless I decide to trade away a good player from the roster. But I could wait till the start of the season to do that. So next episode if you guys want me to. But we definitely need to look into hiring a bunch of new scouts, which I know this is probably pretty boring stuff because a lot of you guys that really care about signing scouts. But we will throw it into this episode because or else this episode will end up being really short. So we are probably going to fire most of our scouts here. Because there should be some good rated scouts, right? Never mind. There's actually not really that much. So there's some C rated ones. And, I mean, I could replace all these D scouts. So I may as well do that. Yeah, we might as well replace all our D scouts. I forgot to actually assign a lot to different regions as well. So let's get rid of all our D scouts. And then we will sign some C rated replacements. Which isn't that great yet. But eventually soon we'll have an off-season where there'll be good scouts in and we could completely overhaul our scouting pool, and hopefully that will give us some good results in terms of the draft class ahead. So fire all the D-rated ones and replace them with C-rated ones, and then I have to make sure to reassign everybody to specific regions at the start of next episode, or we do it in this episode if I remember. So I know this is boring stuff, but this is the due diligence you need to do in the off seasons, at least in the beginning. So let's how much scout room do we have right at the moment? 7 out of 20. So yeah, we need 13 more scouts, so we'll just sign all the top 13 scouts. So let's just give them exactly what they're asking for. If any reject, we'll have to go back and get some more, but like I said, these scouts are just temporary people to have in our scouting pool for the moment, until we actually get some good rated ones that are like A minuses and such. So that is how much so far? 6. Yeah, we need a lot of these guys. 7. Hey, look, there's a guy named Burmistrov too that we're hiring. So maybe this guy is the father of our Burmistrov on our team. Skylar Weber. I had to Shea Weber as a different scout before. 3, 6, 9. We need still more than that. 10. Well, I think I said 13, correct? I wish I could actually check right now, but I don't want to check. I think it's 13 that we needed. Autumn Curry, what a name. Autumn Curry. That's probably one of the first times I've seen the first name Autumn. So there you go. 13 scouts will be hired. As of coaching staff, we don't need anything other than a goalie coach in the NHL, so we might as well grab one of those. We do need some AHL coaches, which might be a good idea with our prospect pool. Damn, a 48-year-old coach. Damn, this would be interesting to have a nice young coach, but I don't really think we need to address any coaches in the NHL right now because we aren't going to try and beat too good this year. So let's go coaching influence. We need a goalie coach. Where's the goalie coach? Is there no good goalie coaches early on in franchise mode? I can't even remember. Where is the goalie coaches? Damn. Is there no good goalie coaches? Let's just sort this by teaches instead, I guess. Maybe there's no goalie coaches available. Let's see. It's been a while since I've started up a franchise mode, so I can't remember how many goalie coaches are early years. Okay, so there's a bunch of D- ones. Is there anybody that's actually got a good teaching grade, though? Let's see. Our coaching influence. There's a good teaching grade, actually, on this one. A+ teaching grade. So you know what? We'll do the A+ teaching grade. Because that way I could at least maybe get Devin Dubnyk to develop into being something good for us. So that's good. And for AHL coaches... is there anybody that maybe we could bring in that might help our AHL team, like a good teaching grade too? Teaching grade, let's see, A- is who fits the team currently the best in the AHL? 27, 28, and 28. So it's either Duffy or this. It'd probably be Ernest Marquardt as the signing, as the AHL head coach, at least for now. At some point, we need to definitely get ourselves a good AHL coach, so that way we can get our prospects developing hopefully in the right ways. So because we do have some good prospects going down there this season, like Jordan Eberle and all that, so we might as well find ourselves some good coaches. So that is good. Coaches are dealt with, scouts are dealt with. Like I said, I don't think we want to make any trades here yet until we actually see what our roster looks like. Trying to think if there's anything else that we need to do before we actually start simulating a little bit. Because it would make sense to trade some people right now, hypothetically, but I don't really know if I want to just fire sell a bunch of people without you guys' feedback first. Like, I want your guys' opinions on who we should be trading still. Like, do we want to trade guys like Souray? Do we want to trade Tom Gilbert already? Ryan Whitney? Try and get Sean Horkoff to waive his no movement clause? Like, aside from that, we should be pretty mid. Ethan Morrow maybe is a guy to get dealt still, too. And in goalies, obviously we could still deal away Heavy Bullen, but I'm not too sure if I want to do that yet. So I think for now we're going to just stay pat with our roster. But there is a good chance that we could still make some trades before we actually start simulating in next episode. Because we aren't going to probably simulate any 2010-11. Like I said, we need to still do some off-season focus. Actually, that's another thing I need to do in this episode because I want to try and get some of our prospects to develop. The veterans we probably won't focus on, but guys like Cogliano, Gagne, I think we need to do some focuses on them. So Cogliano, let's see if we can maybe get his face-offs to improve a little bit. I know he's a center/left winger. We probably utilize him more as a left winger, but it would be nice if he could get better at face-offs. So let's try and get him to improve on that a little bit. So that way, at least he could be maybe somewhat useful on draws. Like, even if he gets to a 75, then he could still take some face-offs on, like, the PK and all that. Sam Gagne is an interesting one. What is he not good at, though? I know he's more of an offensive player. His face-off attributes should be okay. Trying to think of what I want. Let's go offensive game. And let's just work on his offensive awareness, even though his awareness probably is pretty high. So, let's go with that. Anybody else that I want to work on the NHL roster? Most of these guys are veterans, so that doesn't really matter too much about that stage. I mean, I guess I could do guys like Brule and Nilsson. Brule is a solid third-line option for a center role, so we might as well try and get him to improve his face-offs too, because I'm pretty sure his face-offs are a little bit low. So we'll try and get some of the guys that actually can take face-offs to get better at that. Nilsson's still relatively young, so we might as well give him a focus as well. And let's just try and get him to be a little bit better offensively as well, if possible. But at least it seems like these screens are actually going relatively quick right now, which is kind of surprising because before I thought they used to take a long time, but maybe it's because we're early into franchise mode. We'll also try and get Marc-Antoine Pouliot to be a little bit better too, because he's still relatively young too. So we might as well get him better at face-offs as well. and just work on those type of things. And also, if you guys have any goals for the season that we could give to some of these players, we'll probably do some of that in next episode as well. So that way we could try and get maybe Hemsky to, I don't know, pick up 50 assists or something like that and achieve some goals. So Dubnyk, since this is his rookie season he's going into, we need him to be maybe a bit stronger. So let's go with, I'm not too sure what his weakness is at this point. Let's go with athleticism, sure. I honestly don't know. Don't know what his biggest weakness is on this team, so. But Schmid is actually okay young, too. We might as well get Schmid to get better defensively. See if he could outgrow that top 6D potential, but I doubt he will. Let's just get his defensive awareness better. He says he could already hold his own on it, but we might as well see if he can improve on it. Because if we could get him into a nice shutdown defenseman, that would be nice for our team. Ryan Jones is okay in terms of young, but he's not going to have a high ceiling. Patolny doesn't matter. Redix doesn't matter. Chorney. Yeah, I think we'll be fine with those. What about AHL? Delorier, he's not going to really grow much. Linus Omark, I mean, he kind of could use some focus. Let's go with offensive stats for him as well, because I don't know if he'll really develop, but we might as well try and get him to improve on that. Like I said, maybe he could crack our lineup this season, but I'm not too sure. Jacques doesn't matter. A lot of these guys don't matter too much. PRV, definitely, we could try and get him to outgrow his potential too. Let's try and get him to work on his offensive game a little bit too, because he hasn't played in an AHL season yet. This will be his first AHL year down there at Jordan Eberle, so excited what those two could do. Hopefully that helps us out a little bit in terms of prospects. Landier is relatively young, so we might as well focus on him. Also, I know this part's boring for some of you, so I apologize, but we got to add some time to this episode. And we'll also take a look at what AI signings happen this off-season as well, because that's going to be another interesting thing. So, I didn't mean to go puck skills, but whatever. That works. That works. Let's see. Plant's young, but he's not got potential. Same with Peckham. Riley Nash, I guess we could try and work on. He's got some potential, so we'll try and get him to work on his face-off, sure. Just since he's a centerman, might as well try and get some centers to actually win some face-off dots. Let's see what else we got here. Nobody else. All right. I don't know if Jordan Eberle is AHL eligible this year. I thought he was, but he's not showing up on this, so I'm assuming he's not eligible yet, but we'll see obviously when we get to next season. Aside from that, I think we're good on our off-season focuses, which means I think we're ready to start simulating. So, with that said, let's simulate till the end of the month. We'll see what signings happen around the league as well at the end of the month. We are going to have a bunch of scout notifications here shortly, so we might as well go through those as fast as possible. So there is Grigorenko. There is Couture. Welcome aboard. There is Sorokins. There is Goddard. Julius Goddard, what a name. Sorokins again. So we have apparently two scouts with the same last name, so that's kind of neat. Dave Long on board. Welcome aboard to the Long Man. Burmistrov's on board. Weber's on board. What else we got? Ferrario's on board as the coach for the goalie coach's spot. Ernest Marquardt decided not to join our team. Actually, no, he did join our team. Never mind. I got confused for a second because of the AHL logo. I was like, wait a second. I'm not used to being Springfield. But yeah, Ernest Marquardt's on board. He will become the next AHL head coach, which is nice. And now we're getting some trade offers, which we're just going to... We're going to decline that for now. I do want to move out from Ethan Morrow, I think, at some point, and name a new captain. But basically, this trade is literally just a pick swap with the 4th rounders, and then basically we'd be getting a 5th rounder for Ethan Morrow, which is kind of mid, but I mean, it's not terrible, but I don't really know if I'd accept that at this point. I definitely will look into moving out Ethan Morrow at some point, though. Raquel's on board. Gustafson's on board. Siri Gustafson, that name was. Harrison's on board. There's Autumn Curry. And that should be all the scouts dealt with, which is good. That's interesting. That's actually not that bad. I don't really need a 7th defenseman, but basically Columbus would give us a 3rd round pick. So we're basically moving up in the draft to take on Jan Hayda's salary for a year. That's really not bad. But I don't know if I really want to make us too good right now. Jan Hayda's not the best defenseman in the world, but he's a 77. He would be basically a replacement for Chorney as that depth defenseman, but they would give us literally a third-round pick. And we'd move up from round 4s and 5. I don't know if that's worth it in a sense or not. It might be. But I'm not going to do it right now. That's kind of an interesting offer, though. Just to take on that guy's contract. Hamalainen's on board as a scout, so that should be all the scouts dealt with. Tampa's willing to do a similar deal with the Ethan Morrow situation, which is basically a pick swap of the thirds, and then we give them Morrow for a 6th round pick, basically. So I feel like we'd get earlier in the draft, maybe a bit, because Tampa's not very good, but we're not very good too. Yeah, I don't think I could do really those type of deals. Those ones, I don't know if they really make much sense for me. This one, on the other hand, though, might be a no-brainer. The Canucks are a good team, so this would be 2 late third-round picks. But basically, we give up a third. We get a third. So it's a pick swap of the third-round picks in 2027, which is essentially, I guess, 2012. We get their third-rounder for this upcoming season for Ethan Morrow. I feel like they're going to be a good team, though, so I don't know if that's worth it. It's just basically we get an extra third, though, for Morrow instead of a 6th or something like that. Oh, boy. That might be worth it. That might be worth it. Because I could always, like I said, get Omark into the lineup or something this season, even if he's not that good. He doesn't have a high ceiling, so is it worth it to get rid of Ethan Morrow to the Canucks? Last season, he brought us 15 goals. Playoffs, he had 5 points. He is 34 years old, probably going to start dropping off here relatively soon. Signed for 1 more year. The Canucks are definitely a cup contender, though. If they bring him in, where does he fit into their forward group? Let me see this. Since he's a left winger, he'd end up coming like 3, 6, 9. He'd be like a 3rd or 4th liner on this team. It would push Grabner to the AHL potentially, or Tanner Glass. But it does give them more depth in the lineup. You know what? I think I'm going to do this deal. I wasn't planning on moving out somebody in this episode, but Morrow was definitely a guy I was thinking of trading away at some point, and we get an extra 3rd round pick in this deal. So it's basically an early 3rd for potentially 2 late 3rds in a way. It's not the craziest deal for Morrow, but it's definitely better than what we were getting offered. And I don't think Ethan Morrow is going to have an insane season where he gets like value of a 2nd round pick. So, I think I'm going to do this deal. I wasn't planning to do it. Like I said, we could always try and trade for a prospect because they do have Hodgson on the block instead of the 3rd round picks. But is Hodgson worth taking in? 73, he's back in junior, 20 years old, ELC. He's only got the top 9 potential, so similar to Burmistrov. Trying to think if I'd want him instead. He's got lower value, I feel like, than the 2 3rd rounders. Yeah, I think I'll just end up doing this deal. If I got rid of a 3rd round pick from them from this year, if I took in Hodgson instead on the deal, can I do like a 3rd in Hodgson for a 3rd in Morrow? Because at least then it gives us a prospect to maybe get instead. That might still work. I honestly might be okay with this one instead of the 2 3rd rounders because I'm trying to think logically, who would I get with a 3rd round pick this upcoming draft in 2011? I can't think of who's around that point. Getting in Hodgson as a prospect, he could end up becoming a 2nd line center, or it's Burmistrov or something like that does. But it does give us a prospect that's unsigned. Or he is signed, I guess, but technically in junior. Yeah, you know what? I think this is a good deal. So a 3rd, it's a pick swap basically, and then Morrow for Hodgson. So would this work? And that's accepted. Okay, apparently we could have maybe added some more into that deal, but a nice little counter trade. Our captain has gone to the Canucks. I don't know what to think about that deal, but I think it was a good one. All right, so we're at July 31st. So let's take a look at some AI trades and signings that went down so far this offseason just to see if there's been anything crazy, like people signing with teams you never thought they'd play with. So let's go to activity feed. First, look at the trades. So in terms of trades this offseason, Adam Foote has been dealt to the Pittsburgh Penguins from Colorado, alongside a 3rd round pick for a 2nd and a 3rd. Vancouver has acquired a 3rd and Mike Weber from the Buffalo Sabres for Grabner and a 3rd. So Michael Grabner got dealt as soon as we dealt him Ethan Morrow. So that's kind of interesting. So I guess it pushed Grabner not to the AHL, but to joining a different team. The Ottawa Senators acquired Barrett Jackman and Alexei Ponikarovsky from St. Louis. St. Louis acquires Jason Zucker and Jacob Silverberg. So Ottawa's already offloaded 2 prospects in this. And they get in Ponikarovsky, who must have been a free agent signing, and then Barrett Jackman. Interesting. Minnesota gets Willie Mitchell, who used to play there, and a 3rd-round pick from St. Louis. St. Louis acquires a 2nd-round pick. So St. Louis, I think, signed literally Ponikarovsky and Willie Mitchell and then immediately flipped them, which is kind of dumb, but I'm just not going to look at that like that. Montreal acquired Antti Miettinen from the Minnesota Wild for Brendan Gallagher and Victor Outlaw, the goalie prospects. So, unfortunately, despite last episode, Brendan Gallagher getting drafted by the Habs like real life, he ends up getting dealt to the Minnesota Wild before he debuts. So, maybe it's because he's a top 6 grinder, but that's kind of unfortunate. I was kind of hoping he'd actually make a debut with the Habs and all that. The Rangers acquire a 3rd and Richard Zednik from Philadelphia for a 2nd and some guy named Frederick Ekholm, who's generated. Vancouver's acquired a 3rd and Craig Conroy from Calgary for a 2nd-round pick in Calle Jarnkrok. Jeez, I can barely talk. So Vancouver's got Conroy and Morrow from these last few deals. So Vancouver might be loading up. Maybe they're going to be a cup favorite in 2011, just like real life. And then there's our Hodgson-Morrow deal. Montreal got Manny Malhotra and a 4th from Toronto for a 2nd in Brian Strait. So Malhotra on his way to the Habs, where he played in real life for a little bit. And that's it. So in terms of signings, what do we got? Any crazy signings? If you guys see anything I missed, let me know, though. As Vancouver signed young prospect Antti Ranta, apparently. Anything crazy that we were not expecting? Wayne Primo going back to Tampa, where he was originally early in his career, I think. Not with them originally. I think he played with Buffalo first. I can't even remember. Aside from that, what else we got here? A lot of guys getting their ELCs. XLB in Vancouver's not a huge one. Just looking for the big names. Aaron Johnson, our former defenseman, got a 3-year deal in Florida. Good for him. Florida's another bad team, but he will get a chance to play there probably. Aside from that, Victor Kozlov to Vancouver. Bergenheim's in Philadelphia now. Looking for the big names, which I don't remember which players were big names. P.A. Pereto going to Tampa on a 1-year deal. We'll see if he ends up becoming good like he was with the Islanders. Aside from that, Taron and Mackey, Vancouver, Hugh Ottawa. Ponikarovsky, yeah, he did sign with St. Louis and then got immediately flipped, which is kind of hilarious. John Madden, Buffalo. Not really seeing any crazy names. Shatan going to Atlanta, Lang to Tampa. Slava Kozlov to the Islanders. Mike Weaver going to Florida, where he actually played for a bit, so that's kind of neat. At least I'm pretty sure. Josh Harding going to Tampa Bay. Chris Higgins gets a 6-year deal with the Atlanta Thrashers. He was one of the big name free agents this year, so shout out to Chris Higgins for securing the bag with the Thrashers. Eventually will be the Jets, I guess, in year 3, hypothetically. What else we got? Richard Zednik, who also got dealt, I think. Mike Comrie already signed with the Islanders. So Mike Comrie left us and went back to the Islanders. That's where he ended up, so that's kind of funny, since he actually played there. Rafi Torres in Florida, Martin Biron in St. Louis, Joe Corvo in Colorado. Manny Malhotra did sign in Toronto and got dealt. Same with Willie Mitchell signing in St. Louis and then getting dealt. Kind of annoying, but it is what it is. Dan Ellis to Minnesota. Chris Mason signed with the Thrashers. I don't think was he on the Thrashers to start this franchise mode? I don't think so. So that would be realistic, because I'm pretty sure in real life he signed with the Atlanta Thrashers and then played also a little bit in Winnipeg. So that's kind of neat. Bill Guerin going back to Dallas. So that's kind of neat, where he was really good in his career. So Bill Guerin off his way to Texas. Aside from that, Fedotenko in Colorado. A lot of players moving. Pavel Demitra to Atlanta. Keith Tkachuk signs in Toronto. That's kind of disgusting. That's kind of funny to think about, because technically young Brady Tkachuk would have been growing up around the Leafs at this point in time, if that was happening, I guess. Radulov gets a 6-year deal to remain with the Nashville Predators. So despite having a morale crisis with the Preds last season, Radulov has decided to stay around in Nashville. Huh. Halak gets a 5-year deal out of arbitration with Montreal, which is interesting because they do have Carey Price still too. So, did they prioritize Halak, and will Price be on the move eventually? I'm wondering about that. Rob Blake signs in New Jersey. Paul Kariya signs with the Kings. Volchenkov signs a 5-year deal in Tampa. Olli Jokinen to Colorado. Yager re-signed in Boston on another 1-year deal. And Paul Martin has also joined the Kings. Looks like a lot of good players joined the Kings, like Paul Kariya and Paul Martin. So, the two Pauls moving on to LA, which means, are they a favorite this year to win the Stanley Cup? I think it's going to be them in Vancouver and the West that are going to be really good, but hard to say. All right, let's continue to assimilate to next season, and we will get our roster set up. We won't take a look at free agent signings for August, because usually August is when the lower-end players go. I don't think there's any big names available still, too, right? Let's just see if there's any big names still available after 1 month. Blake Wheeler is still an RFA at the moment. Interesting. So I guess the Boston Bruins do not have the cap space to re-sign him. Marco Sturm is still a free agent. So actually there is some okay names still, but I'm assuming Blake Wheeler can't re-sign because Boston decided to bring in Yager instead, right? Like, let's take a look at Boston's salary for a little bit of something extra. Let's see. Yeah, they do not have the cap space. They brought in Yager and said, screw it, we don't want Blake Wheeler, which is interesting. So I wonder if Blake Wheeler is going to be a holdout all year because of that, or if somebody's actually going to trade for his rights. Like, maybe we could trade for his rights, but I don't know if I want to do that this early into franchise mode. Like, if we go to fine trade right now, how much value does Blake Wheeler have? Because he's an RFA. He actually still has a lot of value. If we went to fine trade on this, yeah, we'd have to give up Gagne, Petrie, and Pouliot, which is a bit too much for me to do at this moment. But Blake Wheeler will be out for probably the entire year unless he gets dealt to another team before the start of the season. So we won't take a look at the free agent signings, like I said, for August because it's going to be kind of pointless. But we'll find out stuff like that at the start of next season. But let's continue to assimilate. No, thank you. Not going to make any trades for Jan Heda, but going to be interesting to see what our team's looking like. Like, we shouldn't have good depth. Like, we might have some good players still on our team, but there's no way this team should be as good as last season because we've offloaded some good pieces. So I don't think we're going to be as strong anymore. And we kind of got rid of, like, Pisani and all that. Like, I wonder where Pisani's going to sign, speaking of that. But first and foremost, the new captain to the Edmonton Oilers. Do we want to name a captain yet? It did make Sean Horikoff the captain immediately. Eberle gets put in the NHL, which I don't know if I want. Let me see. Can I readjust his jersey number? Let's do that because obviously Chris Menard doesn't matter as much. But Jordan Eberle immediately got an A in his rookie season, which is definitely not going to happen. We'll go to Hemsky, Sheldon Sourer. I guess Horikoff as a captain for now is okay. And then Liam Reddick should be like number 85, wasn't it? When he was with the Oilers? Or was it 86? I want to make sure these guys actually have accurate numbers. So let's see on Reddick's for a second here. Reddick's, it was 85, I thought so. Don't ask me how I know random jersey numbers like that, but anybody else that is new to the roster? Patolny, I'm okay with keeping him 16. Yeah, the rest of that looks fine. Actually, Petrie. Was Petrie 21 in his rookie year, or was he actually 77 or some shit already? Let's see. Or 26, 58. Oh, yeah, 58. Yeah, that's right. He was number 2 for a bit, too. But we could go with 58, or we could go with number 2. We might as well get 58 for now. Keep it somewhat realistic. And that should be good. Okay, perfect. All right, so that's good. Let's go to the lines and see who should be in NHL and who should not be. And go roster moves. Let's see what we got. So in terms of the goalies, Heavy Bullen and Dubnyk. And then buried in the minors, Delorier, he's actually listed as a minor starting goalie still too, so that's actually kind of perfect. So those are the goaltending tandems. Defensively, Souray, Whitney, Gilbert, Smead, Strudwick, Petrie, and Chorney. That's fine with me too. And center, oh my gosh, what am I saying? In terms of offense, let's see, we got Hemsky and Eberle. Eberle is a depth forward as a 77. Is he ready to make that jump? Is he ready to make that jump? His shooting's 3.5 stars. His offensive awareness is fine. Trying to think if I want to have him already in the NHL or not. I don't think he's AHL eligible though, right? If I go like this and go to send him down, would it say junior? No, I can't send him down to the AHL. Okay, so Eberle could play in the minors if we want to. If we want to. And then we could run McDonald instead and wait for Eberle to develop a bit more. I might leave that up to you guys if he should be in the NHL next season or not. Left wing side of things, we got O'Sullivan, Nilsson, Redix, Jones, Menard. JF Jacques could be up here too. Omar could be up here. Like, we could have these guys up here instead of Eberle, so that way Eberle gets some good playing time in the AHL. Centers, Gagne, Cogliano, Horkov, Brule, Pouliot, Petone, Hodgson's in the AHL. You know what? I think everything's pretty much the right way it should be. So in terms of our lineup, we will do Gagne, O'Sullivan, and Hemsky as our top line. Cogliano, Horkov, and I will probably put Eberle into the top 6 already as a 77. Pouliot could get 3rd line. Liam Redix could get 4th line. Jones with Petone. Yeah, this actually looks okay. Obviously, Eberle is kind of weak having him up all the way up here already, but we could run him here in the top 6 if you guys don't want him in the AHL yet. So, yeah, that's not bad. It's kind of weak still, obviously, in terms of depth, but down the middle looks okay. And on the left side looks okay. Right side's definitely the weakest point. Defensively, we will probably... Yeah, we could go with this. That's fine, too. Chorney in the lineup over who? Strudwick. Strudwick's got to play instead of Chorney. Chorney's an okay defenseman, but he's not an NHL full-time guy, so we'll keep him scratched, I guess. And we do need one more depth forward, so I'll call up probably one of the enforcers. Just because the enforcers probably could be okay with being a depth option. So we'll go with JF Jacques as the other one. We could make it Stortini, but it doesn't really matter. Alright, so this is probably what we're going to run with then. And in terms of the power play units, let's just make sure Eberle is on a power play, which he currently is not. I'm going to take Nilsson off the power play, I think. I'm going to take Nilsson off the power play. Cogliano is not really a huge offensive guy either, I guess, but Eberle needs that power play time. And that should be fine there. That's all good. Penalty kill should be fine as well. Yeah, that looks good. All right. I think this is honestly not bad of a roster. I don't really want them to be that good, but I also don't want to hurt people's development. So, first line looks good. Second line, obviously a little bit weak, putting Eberle already up there, but I think it's a good spot for him to be in with Horkov and Cogliano, also with some power play time. Third line having Nilsson, Brule, and Pouliot. I don't mind that line, to be honest, either. And a fourth line of Redix, Petone, and Jones. I think it's okay. And then defensively, we might be too strong with these top 3 guys, Sure, Gilbert, and Whitney, so we could still trade one away. But I don't know if it's something we necessarily need to do to be a bad team. And then we also still have Petrie, Strudwick, and Schmid. And then goalies, Habibulin and Dubnik. I don't mind it. AHL, is there anybody that is scratched that shouldn't be? No, there isn't. Let's just make sure our top prospects are high in the lineup. So Omar in the top 6 with Hodgson and Ryan O'Mara. Looks okay. Landers, a third line center's fine. Riley Nash could probably be higher than Van de Velde, so we'll just change that up a little bit maybe. And then the rest of this should be pretty much okay, I think. Actually, maybe I'll move Hodgson as a right winger instead, playing next to Freder. Actually, Freder's not even a prospect at this point, so we'll move Freder down in the lineup to the 4th line center. That way Lander and Van de Velde get a bigger chance. Riley Nash is a right-handed shot as well, so we'll move him to the right wing spot on that top line. Try and just get our top prospects in the best spot to achieve some early success. And can I get rid of this minus out of curiosity? Not really. Maybe we could get rid of it. Nope, I don't think so. Alright, that's fine. Goalies just look like that. Everything's good. Everything is good, so I think it looks good. I think it looks good for the upcoming season. I'm kind of hoping that we don't have good chemistry in a way, so that way we don't achieve the playoffs again. But let's take a look here at our coaching staff. Kessler is obviously an A- coach, so the easiest way is to get a worse coach, 66%. Let's demote him for a second here. What is Craig looking like as a head coach? 62 as a B coach. That's not bad either. And Harkins as a head coach. 59. We probably could just leave it the way it is. 66 isn't the craziest team fit, so I think we'll probably keep it like that. We do need to reassign all those scouts. I might honestly just do it in between episodes just because it might be easier that way, but I'll probably do that then. In terms of anything else do we want to take a look at? I don't think there's really anything else because, like I said, next episode, I want you guys' opinions also for season goals, what we should give to some of these guys. We won't give them to every single player, but maybe give it to the guys like Hemsky, Sheldon Sure, somebody like that, or the younger options too, like Cogliano, Gagne, just to try and get them to grow more. So we could give out some season goals. I also got your guys' opinions if we should keep Eberle in the NHL or if he should go back to the AHL, that type of thing. Because I think pretty much I feel like our roster is the way I want it to be, so I feel like Eberle in the NHL might be an okay thing for him. Obviously, he's listed as a depth forward, though, so maybe we want to wait a little bit. We could always throw in an enforcer instead, like Stortini could come up if we want to. Aside from that, though, I think we're pretty much good for the season ahead. Also, should we get a worse coach, maybe, instead, so that way we don't have to rely on basically our team just not simulating good. Because if we get a bad coach, we will be a bad team again next season instead of making the playoffs. I also want to briefly go to, can I view lines already? Yes, I can. I don't know if they're already set up for preseason. They might be. Let me just take a look at this briefly. I don't know if they are, actually. I was going to say maybe we could just skim through some of these teams and see if there's any new faces on these rosters. So let's go ahead and do that quickly. See if there's any new faces that we have not seen so far. We'll look through every team just for a little bit of something extra in this episode, because that way you guys don't think it's a short episode, but you also like short episodes probably too. Anaheim literally looks like a typical Anaheim team. Atlanta obviously brought in Pavel Demitra, Michael Ryder's new, Chris Higgins. Atlanta's making some moves. They are making some moves. Miroslav Shatan as a fourth-line left winger. I don't know why they brought in Higgins and Shatan and Demitra when they have Evander Kane. But Atlanta's loading up, apparently. Curtis Foster's there now, too. Freddie Meyer. All right, Brett Lebda. Chris Mason and Pavlik. Yeah, this Atlanta team's actually not that bad anymore. Boston, what did they bring in? Aslan's still there. Where's Yager? Oh, Yager's right there. Okay. Sabotka's still there. Svatos. They brought in. Brad Marchand has made the NHL. I think he was in the AHL last year, right? Yeah, he was. So Brad Marchand's going to make his debut, which is kind of neat. Defensively, no new changes really. Goalies look like that. Jesus. Tuukka Rask is up to an 89 behind Tim Thomas. That's a crazy team, man. Andy Sutton is a depth defenseman. And they don't have the cap space to bring back Blake Wheeler. Imagine if they had Blake Wheeler here and then Recchi was the third line guy. Svatos was maybe a scratching and Thornton was that fourth line guy still. Damn, yeah. Boston needs to free up cap space if they want to get Blake Wheeler back. Buffalo. Any new faces here that I don't recognize? Dominic Moore, I don't think, was he here in year one? I don't feel like he was. No, he was in Montreal, but I know he played for Buffalo, I think, in real life, so that's kind of neat. What else we got here? John Madden is new. Obviously, we saw he signed there. Some guy named Brzgalov, who they drafted in the top 10. All right. There's Sergei Zubov. Goalies. This is exact same. Scratch. No changes, really. Calgary. Peter Forsberg still there, obviously. Chris Chuko has made the NHL. Well, that's something I did not expect to see. Maybe they are set up for preseason partially. Because there's no way Calgary has that bad a depth. Like, did they lose a lot of players or something? Like, Chris Chuko making the NHL does not make sense. That guy retired early because of injury-related problems, I'm pretty sure. John Rayo has also made it. J.D. Watts made it. Curtis Glencross is a fourth-line guy. He's losing morale, apparently. Damn, Calgary might be going through a rough patch right now. Defensively, no changes, really. Goalies. Hedberg's the now backup behind Kiprusoff. Stefan Kronwall is depth. TJ Brody's a depth defenseman, and Adam Party. I don't know what's going on in Calgary, but oh well. Carolina, obviously Penner, who we traded there, is now in their top 6. So that's interesting. Aside from that, the rest of their forward group's pretty much the exact same. Carolina actually looks pretty good too. So yeah, I think a lot of these teams already look way better than us. Dmitry Kalinин's on that defensive core now. Goalies, Telquist is the backup behind Ward. All right. Chicago, obviously they don't have a lot of cap space, but they were able to keep Dustin Byfuglien, which is kind of surprising, and Andrew Ladd. Huh. Byfuglien's only getting 2.9 for another year. He might be a UFA at the end of the year, though, so that's a pretty big free agent available potentially soon. Jake Dowell's making the NHL. I don't think he was last year, but I could be wrong. Hanyu Toivonin's the backup behind Corey Crawford. So the two guys that I believe were both in the AHL last year. Yeah, mostly in the AHL last year, are now the NHL goalies, which means that they let go of Niemi, which I remember that, and they also let go of Cristobal Hue. Brett Clark is there. Jordan Hendry. Colorado. Trying to go through this quickly because I don't want to be spending 25-30 minutes on this, but Radek Bonk is new. David Desharnais is new to the lineup for Colorado. Glenn Metropolit as well. Joe Corvo I see on the top pairing. Seeing Corvo and Pricey on a defensive pairing just reminding me of 2007. Mark Stewart's there as a healthy scratch. Columbus. It's this guy named Olsen. Oh, yeah, that was the first overall pick, right? Yeah. Interesting. Andrew Ebbett is there as a third-line guy. Defensively, Kim Janssen's on board in Columbus. Now, Teuton's losing morale as well. Or he's just dropping off already? I'm not too sure. Kind of strange. How much minutes was he getting last season? 25 minutes. Huh. Maybe he just dropped off because of how his play was. I don't really know. Goalies, pretty much the same. Scratch Mark Method is there, and he's losing morale. Maybe there's teams with morale crises right now. Dallas. Damn, that left side's still strong as shit. Bill Guerin getting added to this team is actually insane, though, because literally this top 9 is maybe one of the best top 9s out there. There's going to be some really good teams this year. And if some of them underachieve, I would be expecting that too, though. Steve Emiger's on the defense. Goalies, still the same goalie tandem. Jersino on board as a depth defenseman. Detroit, who we obviously took out last year. Looks like a typical Detroit team. Yeah, not really any change. Derek Meach is there still. Yeah, this doesn't look much different. Kindle's a healthy scratch, and Doug Janik. Edmonton is obviously us, so Florida. Clark MacArthur, that's a pretty solid player to bring in. We were thinking about maybe signing a guy like him, but didn't end up. So Clark MacArthur's on his way to Florida. Aside from that, looks pretty much like a normal Florida team. Francois Beauchemin got dealt there last season, I think. Right? Was he dealt there last season or somewhere else? No, it was there last season. All right. Yeah, looks like a lot of these teams went through a lot of changes. Christoph Schubert is a scratch. Torres is a scratch. Eek. LA. Paul Correa's on board. Yeah, this LA team is going to be better this season, I think. Correa on board. Michael Hanzus, was he there last season? He was. But I don't even remember playing against him in that playoffs at all. He didn't really have any points, I guess, against us. But yeah, Paul Correa is a huge addition to that team. Trevor Lewis, was he in the NHL last year? He wasn't. See, like, Trevor Lewis jumped from the AHL team into the NHL, so there's a very good chance the Kings could be very competitive this season. Paul Martin playing with Drew Doughty is absolutely phenomenal. That's a great pairing. Aside from that, kind of mid on the rest of it, maybe. Goalies, Jonathan Bernier has jumped to the NHL as an 84. The LA Kings are looking good. Alec Martinez also jumped up and he's scratched. And Davis Druiski's there. Yeah, that Kings team looks strong. Minnesota, Peter Sikora, I think, was maybe already there. Can't remember. Ben Eager's there. PJ Axelson. Willie Mitchell's back in Minnesota now. Paul Mera. Dan Ellis is there. Minnesota added some pieces. Montreal. Antti Miettinen obviously is there now. Matthew Lombardi's there. Manny Malhotra is there. Any other things? Aaron Ward is there. Marc-Andre Bergeron was already there, I think. And yeah, Price is the starting goalie, yet they just signed Halak to a 5-year deal at 4.26. So, interesting times for Montreal, what they do with their goalie tandem long term. So, there is that. We head to Nashville. Euselius, obviously, we played them last year as well. Knocked them out. Matt Cullen is still there. Feels like mostly everything else is the same. Radulov literally just signed a 6-year deal to be a 4th-line right winger on that team. He's not going to be very happy playing down there. He's not getting paid a ton of money, but he's got a 6-year deal. He expects to be up there at where Dumont is right now. I don't know what Nashville's doing, but at least we're not them. Aside from that, defensively, looks the same. Goalies, Valaket's a backup there now. Hornquist is scratched. What the hell is Jordan, or not Jordan Hornquist, what am I saying? Patrick Hornquist doing is a scratch. New Jersey, I mean, Matt Halschuk's maybe made the NHL. All right, looks like a typical Devils team as well. Oduya's back there again. Martin School is still there. Okay. Andrew Raycroft is now the backup for Marty Brodeur. That's kind of strange. Okay. The New York Islanders. Slava Kozlov. Jason Williams. Mike Comrie. Defensively, Mark Eaton has joined the Islanders, which I think is where he actually was at one point. So that's actually kind of sick. Daryl Sador's there. Goalies. DiPietro is now the backup after last year. He spent the entire time in Bridgeport because they did have Martin Biron. Mark Streit is scratched with an X factor. Why is that a thing? Okay, maybe I shouldn't be looking at these lines because it's just going to be like, why? Like, why are they scratching Streit when there's all this? It just doesn't make any sense in my opinion. The Rangers. Afanaganov there. Michael Nylander has returned to the New York Rangers. Actually, he was there last season too. He must have signed there as a free agent, which I didn't even realize. I don't think. But that's kind of cool. Maybe I did realize that. I honestly don't remember. Richard Zednick's there now. Defensively, looks pretty normal. Goalies, normal. Scratches Ryan McDonough. Why is Ryan McDonough scratched? Goddamn, man. Ottawa, not really any changes in the top 6. Ponikarovsky is ascent is kind of strange after him being a Leaf for a long time in his career. Vernon Fiddler is a 4th-line center. Okay. Defensively, Barrett Jackman on board. Tony Ludman on board. That's pretty good. And in goalies, Leclerc and Elliott still. Dennis Gorbeshkov is a scratch. Philadelphia. Still looking strong. Ville Leno is now in the top 6, I guess. Aside from that, no really. Bergenheim's, I guess, a good addition. Scott Hartnell is losing morale due to ice time, probably. He's now listed as a 3rd-line scoring forward, though, which is kind of strange. But it could be because of that morale. He should probably be higher in the lineup. Defensively, any changes? I mean, Christian Backman. Goalies. Ray Emery's the starter still. Yeah, not really any huge changes there. Phoenix. Steve Bajan as a 2nd-line center. Oof. The Coyotes are going to have a rough this year, potentially. Greg Campbell's a 3rd-line center, and Colin Fraser. That's the worst center depth I've seen. But they do have good winger depth, at least. But Jeff Skinner's getting a chance to play in the top 6 after just getting drafted, so that's kind of neat. So, shout out to Skinner. He's going to get to play with Bajan and Verbata. Kind of a weird line, but oh well. Defensively, Hammerlick's there. Alsner is there now, who was acquired from the Capitals last season. Did actually spend 17 NHL games there last year with the Coyotes after that trade. Goalies still look the same. Scratches look the same. Kyle Tursis scratch. Goddamn, man. A lot of good prospects are getting scratched. The top line is literally all centers. Malkin, Crosby, and Stahl. That's kind of strange. But Pittsburgh, Ruslan Fedotenko ended up back in Pittsburgh. Wasn't he signed by a different team? He was on Pittsburgh last year. I thought he got signed by a different team, unless... No, I'm pretty sure he got signed by a different team. We literally just said like 20 minutes ago. And now he got dealt back to Pittsburgh or something. I honestly don't even know. Brad Winchester's there now too. Aside from that, Zbigniew McCulloch. Oh yeah, I forgot that Zbigniew McCulloch ended up in Pittsburgh again in real life too. That's kind of neat. Adam Foote's there now. That's a good addition of Adam Foote. Goalies look the same. Shane Knighty and Brooks Orpik get scratches. San Jose still looks filthy. Logan Couture is a 3rd-line center next to David Moss and Torrey Mitchell. Goddamn. Sharks are still looking deadly, as normal Sharks are. Scratches, Shane O'Brien's a new addition. St. Louis, Tyler Seguin's going to be playing second line center this upcoming season as a rookie. Interesting, behind David Backes. Colby Armstrong is new. Nigel Dawes is new. Was D'Agostini on them to start? I feel like he was, right? Yeah, he was. Okay. Had to double check. Defensively, looks pretty similar except for Shane Morrison's there now. Chris Chelios joined the Blues. I don't know if that's worse for Chicago fans than when he signed with the Detroit Red Wings or got dealt to Detroit. That's kind of weird. He's been on almost every single team in the Central Division at this point. That's kind of strange. Goalies, Martin Biron was signed, and he's their Ty Conklin still. Stefan Veilleux is new. Tampa, Stamkos is developing well, which is good. Wayne Primo's back in Tampa. Robert Lang is a fourth-line center because Nate Thompson, for some reason, is a third-line center. I don't even understand, man. Todd White's there now. Volchenkov is there. Ruslan Soleil's there now. Josh Harding's there. A lot of additions from Tampa. P.A. Parento, Matthew Schneider. Toronto. Keith Tkachuk's now added. So a top line of him, Bozak, and Kessel. So Bozak is developing actually really good, which is kind of surprising. Taylor Hall's there now too. Obviously, he got drafted by them. So Hall and Tkachuk on the top six is going to make this Leafs team a little bit better, but they still lack that depth for sure. Kyle Calder is making the NHL again. Jeff Taff is there now. Defensively, Phaneuf and Komisarek as a pairing sounds gross. Finger and Caberlet. Okay, McKee and Shen. Shen's losing morale a little bit, it looks like, or he's just not good. Jeff Finger is looking like trash, too. And then goalies, Jaguar and Gustafsson, Scratches, Gunnarsson, and Zigomanis. That Leafs team's still not good. Vancouver. Mason Raymond went down to a 76. Why are all these guys randomly dropping after 1 year? It's kind of strange. Must be ice time related. Or morale related. Ethan Morrow. And obviously, we traded him there. We'll see what he does in his season with the Canucks. I think it was good at least that we got Hodgson back in that deal. He's playing with Craig Conroy and Mikhail Samuelson. Not a bad third line. Victor Kozlov is the fourth line center. Defensively looks pretty similar except for Randy Jones is now there. Luongo and Nitamaki. So I guess Corey Schneider spending another year in the AHL. And Scratches, Johnson, and Glass. And the final team, the Washington Capitals. Still a crazy top line. They obviously won the Stanley Cup in year one. They brought in Richard Park. And then defensively, Adrian Aucoin is now there. I think he was there last year, though, too. Didn't he get dealt? Yeah, he did. And he won a Stanley Cup. Good for him. John Carlson has made the NHL if he didn't already last year, which he did last year. Okay, he only played 8 playoff games, so he must have been injured when they won the Cup or something like that. Goalies, Theodore and Varlamov, Scratches, Sloan, and Perreault. The crazy thing is Washington still has Braden Holtby in the AHL, I think, at this stage too. So they have good future players still to build around. But anyways, guys, that's going to do it for this episode of our Edmonton Oilers Throwback 2010 Franchise Mode. So in next episode, we will start simulating 2010-11 season. I might make some changes before we start the season if you guys think Eberle should be in the AHL, if we should make any deals before we start the season. But hopefully this team misses the playoffs this year. The draft class ahead should be an interesting one as well. And hopefully we can start this rebuild off on a good note by maybe drafting in the top 5 at least this season. So anything down below, and I'll see you guys next time.